to celebrate, but at the same time, it is for us not to stop and be cautious and utilize the independence in a rightful and righteous manner. Now similarly, this secretarial audit has been a dream for all of us. It has come. But at the same time, of course, I am not going to get into the nitty-gritty because we have a very well-known friend and speaker. I would like to only say that let us not throw ourselves open. Just now Mr. Sridharan has already warned all of us that even as an expert or a consultant, you will be drawn into a legal battle. So my request to all the professional friends is try to be as serious, as cautious, and as try to get the best knowledge possible before you really certify any of these certifications, especially with regard to the secretarial audit and annual return. I am not trying to scare you friends, I am only trying to share my feelings with you. Now let me get on to the task of introducing the speaker for this technical session, Mr. Dhanpal. I know he is a very familiar friend and speaker at various forums, but at the same time, as per the decorum, I would like to introduce him. He is a fellow member of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. Besides being a commerce graduate from the University of Madras and a law graduate from the reputed Dr. Ambedkar Government Law College, that is the 5 years integrated course. He has around 15 years of experience in the areas of secretarial and legal matters and has undertaken statutory compliances and audits under the various corporate laws. With his wide exposure in both secretarial and legal matters, he has been performing as a mentor in providing holistic legal solutions to the entire corporate sector. He is a passionate reader, voracious speaker, and prolific writer on varied legal and secretarial matters. He regularly contributes for various professional journals, including the Hindustan Chamber of Commerce, Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, and also ICSI, and had addressed at numerous forums. I take this opportunity to welcome Mr. Dhanpal, and I request him to address all of us. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, if I keep seeing each and every dignitary sitting here, then my whole session I have to spend for that only. So, as it is, a subject given is little heavy subject, and I will try to do justice with the given time. With your permission, I want to talk from off odium. Much awaited the secretarial audit. Of course, it has come in place now in Companies Act 2013. But we have to still keep our anxiety intact as rule yet to come out. While I am reaching air card, I was surprised to see rule as displayed in the ministry website. In fact, I have gone through completely. They released the rule only for 16 chapters out of 29 chapters in Companies Act 2013. Unfortunately, that also now removed. In a matter of 2 hours, by the time when I prepared, it got removed. So, I don't know whether we are so unfortunate or we are going to get better from the ministry. Let's wait and see. But before that, in a broader view, let's try to understand what is the scope and what is the responsibility of the professionals, particularly company secretaries who are going to be in future looked up as a secretarial auditor. In fact, the concept of secretarial auditor was originally not there in 2009 bill. It has come only in 2011 bill. In fact, I am segregating the topic, this secretarial audit, annual return. These are topics given to me, so I want to break it so that for the easy understanding, I can move one by one, and wherever you are concerned, please then and there we can deliberate. Of course, secretarial audit today we are talking, but in 2009 itself, ministry has come out with the company corporate governance voluntary guideline, wherein the ministry has suggested that secretarial audit has to be conducted by companies, at least by bigger companies involving professional. But ministry didn't openly say that it should be done by company secretary alone, but they said it should be done by professionals. Subsequently, after that, our institute has come out with a big referencer on secretarial audit in a detailed way. In fact, our institute have done a very good job on that, and they gave a detailed analysis of what secretarial audit, what should be the scope, and what are the areas can be covered, and what are the role of the professionals who undertake secretarial audit. And unfortunately, a ministry has not completely taken into whole referencer as a guidance. They've taken quite a bit from a referencer, but they put their own parameters in secretarial audit. Under section 204 of Companies Act 2013, it says secretarial audit is applicable to all listed company and other classes of companies. That has to be prescribed. Again, as usual, it has to be attached with the, annexed with the. We should know the difference between attached and annexed. In fact, we can debate that itself for a long time. What is the difference between attachment and annexure? Again, it is going to be the annexure to the board's report only. How our compliance practicing company secretary issue a compliance certificate that is getting annexed with the board report. Similar way, the audit report also going to be annexed with the board report. But say, secretarial audit is not given that importance to a statutory audit. Of course, can't be given at an initial stage. But again, the same importance is given, what importance was originally given to the compliance certificate. And of course, we have to wait for the rule and find out what are the scope and area that we have to cover. I will completely in detail, I will compare what is the difference between the audit report given by a statutory auditor, what is going to be the difference between the secretarial audit report going to be given by a secretarial auditor. We can say secretarial auditor, I purposely telling that, because as long as we are giving secretarial audit, we can be called as a secretarial auditor for that limited perspective. We can more discuss on that. There are so many grey areas are there. In fact, again the same concern is that the audit report is addressed to members and the auditors are appointed by the shareholders in the general meeting. Same handicap is there. Now there is no reference who has to appoint the practicing company secretary. In fact, they use the word company secretary in practice. Who has to appoint the company secretary in practice to conduct secretarial audit? Provision is silent. If you can see the similar provision for conducting statutory auditor, it is very clear under section 224. In every annual general meeting, a statutory auditor, auditor has to be appointed in every annual general meeting. Now, of course, now not every annual general meeting, every 6th annual general meeting. Same way for cost auditor, for conducting his cost audit, his appointment should be made by the board. But here, for conducting secretarial audit, there is no reference who has to appoint a company secretary in practice to conduct the secretarial audit. I mean to say, unless the rule specifically comes out, it will be as equivalent to the another compliance certificate where a company gets audit report, then or either before get accounts auditor or after gets accounts auditor, they say give a copy to the company secretary, see the details and go through the details and get the whatever the details you need, you request from us, we will give. Similar way it's going to happen. Unless there's a clear reference has come and equally, at least equal importance is not given, at least some importance is given to the secretarial audit in the rule which is going to come. Now duties and liabilities of companies prescribed. In fact, we have to be feel little happy now. The duty is prescribed to the company to cooperate, to provide assistance. I don't know the word assistance they have used. Give all assistance and facilities to the company secretary. What I mean by assistance and facilities, if you can see section 224 to 232 under Companies Act, where it details about what are the documents a statutory auditor can go through. Of course, the statutory auditor can go through all books of accounts, and of course now the books of accounts have a definition in place, and books and paper, now books and paper, books or paper, two definition is there, all they are authorized to audit and give the report. Now there is no reference by saying which document a secretarial auditor, a company secretary in practice should give his report. Because the 204 provision says the person conducting the practice, a company secretary in practice who is conducting the secretarial audit has to give his audit by seeing secretarial and other records. Again, there is no definition for records and there is no definition what is meant by secretarial. Of course, in our Act, Company Secretary Act 1980, it says company secretary and secretarial services, it's listing out, but there is no reference under Companies Act what is meant by secretarial. So, as of now, assuming nothing is coming out from the rule with reference to what are the documents can be inspected by a company secretary in practice for the purpose of conducting secretarial audit, then it will be presumed only the secretarial and other records, the two related records, can be seen by the practicing company secretary who is undertaking the secretarial audit. Generally, what constitutes as a secretarial record? A minutes that has to be maintained by the company under section 193, and register that has to be maintained, various statutory register that has to be maintained by the company secretary. I don't think the accounts, the financial statements will be construed as a secretarial and other records.
Related records, accounts can also be, you can have access to them without looking into their account.
Yeah, correct. See, that should be the intention. That must be the intention. It has not come out in the words. See, you can't. The interpretation cannot be taken from the word secretarial, and related refers to accounts. In fact, the secretarial word should be related to the accounts. Should not be other way around. But maybe much more attention can be given, at least when the rule is framed, to make it clear what are those documents that the ministry deem it as secretarial and other records. When they make it very clear only, as a practicing company secretary, while we are conducting secretarial audit, we can insist upon those documents. Otherwise, the company may not provide, or they may say that they are not obligated to provide those documents, as the law itself is not permitting to provide those documents to secretarial auditor. So this is going to be a scenario unless a clear rule comes out mentioning about what are the records that a company secretary in practice can inspect for the purpose of conducting secretarial audit. Again, there is another reference is given, just like an audit report. Earlier, if you can see under section 225, there is a reference about whenever any qualification adverse remark is given, should be italics and bold. Now that provision is not available in the statutory additional provisions. I searched for it, and now it is not there for company secretary also, but they made it a point that the board of directors in their report shall give full explanation. I don't understand what they mean by full explanation. Full explanation with respect to three things. One is qualification and observation or other remarks. First of all, we need to understand what are the basic difference between the three. In fact, now with reference to audit report, there is a clarity has come. Now the new revised audit report, which is in place now, which is effective from current financial year, there is SA 700, SA 704, SA 705, which talks about what the audit format should be, what is a matter of emphasis, and what is a matter of qualification. And in fact, based on the nature of the audit report, the auditing standard has to be followed to prepare the audit report. Now, they made it very clear with respect to audit report, if there is a qualification, then you should follow SA 704. And there is no qualification, then they have to follow the format prescribed under SA 700. If there is a matter of emphasis, something the auditor want to convey, such auditor want to convey to the company, may not be alarming one also. That should be considered as a matter of emphasis, which is required to be disclosed under SA, audit standard. It's called secretarial, they say standard of audit standard. Now they made it as part of law. In fact, the current provision of Companies Act 1956, it only recognizing accounting standard under section 211(3)(c). Now in the present act, it not only recognizing accounting standard, it also recognizes auditing standards. Now the audit report that a statutory auditor is giving is validated by the lawmakers and legislature as part of the code. But the secretarial audit, we have to wait and see which format we are going to give and what is meant by qualification or observation or other remarks. How I should distinguish between these three? The ministry should come out with a clear clarification, wordings to make sure that at least the professional we are conducting the secretarial audit, we understand and do it properly. Unless there is a clarity comes, it will be so much difficult to understand which is a qualification, which is my observation, which is my other remarks. Remarks is a very general terminology. I really don't understand how the word remarks is used. Remarks, a colloquial language, now they made it as a part of the legal this thing, now it's going to go for the interpretation. And anything I say can be taken as a remark. Even something...
Adverse remarks or just remarks?
It says just remarks. So that is the whole funda here. We have to find out the first definition to remarks. What is remarks? There is no definition for remarks itself. If you ask me adverse remark, then I have to ask you what do you mean by adverse. According to you, you may understand adverse in a different aspect. See, when I, as a statutory auditor, assuming me as a statutory auditor, so we have not started our secretarial audit, assuming me as a statutory auditor, if I give some remarks, comment about, or adverse comment about the company or financials maintained by the company or entries made by the company, when the company gives another remark, that going to be adverse to my remark. So there is no clarity which is adverse remark. That's what I am trying to share, record. At least the word qualification is well established in the law. And it is codified in many statutes. The word qualification can be utilized to refer the deficiency, to refer the deviation. But there is no reference like for remark. And now the penalty going to be more. It's going in lakhs only. We will see in detail what are the penalties. What are the powers and duties of company secretaries? Now they are alarming. See now, in fact here I am not here to criticize any of the provision. Here this is a forum I am deliberating so that we can go with our feedback to the ministry or regulators, see that all this fine-tuned or at least come out with a clarity. After rules comes, it's not possible to voice out anywhere and see that it is getting changed. Before rules in place, we can voice out our concern and see ministries taking our concern and implementing or changing according to our concern. Fine. Now, with reference to penalty punishment, they equated almost not only penalty and punishment, for powers also they equated with the statutory auditor and cost auditor. In fact, I want to show you 143, but it will disturb the session. Otherwise, I want to show you how it appears. 143 of present Companies Act 2013. It completely talks about what are the powers and duties of the statutory auditor. In fact, it almost 14 subsections are there. In fact, up to Companies Bill 2009, there were only 10 subsections were there. After Companies Bill 2009 became 2011, 4 subsections got introduced, 11, 12, 13, 14. In fact, it assumes too much important. In what sense? It is bringing a fraud inside the scope of the duty and responsibility. In the sense, it brings a punishment provision inside the powers and responsibility provisions itself. See how it brings, in fact, the entire section says, 143, it says what are the powers of the auditors and what are the documents they can procure and what are the details that the company can provide to the auditors and what he has to give us his report and all those particulars are appearing in 143. But at end, if you can see section 12 of 143, with one sentence they finish the whole thing. Sentence you can see that the provisions of section shall mutatis apply to cost accountant and companies practicing company secretary in practice. I understand as much as it's applicable to me, that much as I have to ask. That is one way of interpretation of mutatis mutatis. Or the other way of interpretation is, I should step into the shoes of the statutory auditor and see that what and all I can ask that is required for my secretarial audit. In fact, as it is, no secretarial audit provision is in place in detail, and scopes and powers and what are details should be mentioned in the secretarial audit. So even we can ask any detail and we can give any format as a report unless the report comes in detail. If report going to freeze the whole thing, like complaint certificate have 33 points or that, similar way it is going to be freezed, then our scope will be restricted. Then according to that scope, we have to see that we are stepping the shoes of statutory auditor and see that particular details which is applicable to my audit alone I am taking, or alone I am insisting from the company. And here one way we have to feel happy that this players alone they made a secretarial auditor at par with the statutory auditor, and same way the cost auditor. And no other provision of the entire Companies Act 2013, they made it at par with the statutory auditor, but only for the purpose of this particular section, they made it that the whole provision is applicable mutatis mutatis to a company secretary in practice who is conducting secretarial audit. And we should not feel so happy also when responsibility is given. We have got also a threat also in that. Same threat is available here also. In fact, as I told you, they introduced another subclass 13 where they say the fraud has to be intimated by the statutory auditor. In fact, the punishment provision of subsection 13, it makes it very clear if auditor, company secretary in practice and cost auditor, if he fails to report the fraud, then they are liable for the imprisonment. We will see in detail how long imprisonment going to be. In fact, now the humongous responsibility is given to the company secretary community, fraternity, to see that we are reporting the fraud activity to the central government. And of course, I have seen the rule now, before I have come. Of course, now the rule is removed. Then we can, informally only we can discuss about rule. I can even take it as question paper goes out. 2 hours I have read it and again it gone back. Fine, but probably they may not completely change it, but I will just want to take out some provision from there and see that we can now itself deliberate and we can prepare ourselves for the rule that is going to come. In fact, what it says, if a fraud, if a professional, an auditor, a company secretary in practice, a cost auditor, he come across any fraud, the value that exceeds 5 lakhs, that is then the rule which I have seen now got removed, and which is frequently occurring, that has to be communicated to the central government within 30 days with a copy to the board of directors. It was there in the provision in the rule. Failure of which we will see the consequence in the slide. See, penalty for non-compliances not less than 1 lakh and will extend up to 5 lakhs. And non-compliance with respect to 143(12) fraud, PCS in default shall be punishable with fine not less than 1 lakhs, then extend up to 25 lakhs. This is applicable to all professionals, whether statutory auditor or cost auditor or secretarial auditor. So we have to be very careful, and not only this, in fact the last portion of my session going to be completely on threat fraud only. There we will see what are the more complications or more responsibility that a company secretary we are going to face. Now we will continue the secretarial audit portion. Now as of now, matter to be prescribed, the format has to be prescribed, and classes of companies has to be prescribed, and e-form has to be prescribed. Of course, I have seen in the rule which is notified, so many e-forms names are appearing. 2.1, 2.3, whole incorporation was appearing 2 point only. It goes up to 2.30 and all. I think we'll see whether they may change the form number also, again they may publish. We can't take it now anything officially, but they are already mentioning the form number in the rule itself. And importantly, who will appoint the PCS? Whether board will appoint, or a shareholder is going to appoint, or a CFO or accounts manager is going to appoint. And who can remove him again? After we give a report, who can remove him? The same person who is going to appoint only going to remove, unless there is a clear rule in place. And another one interesting read while I was going through the Act, I have seen, it's not completely relevant to secretarial audit, but I have seen, I was finding it interesting, section 118, subsection 8, where it says that the minutes have been kept in accordance with subsection 1. That means how like our equivalent section under Present Companies Act, section 193, where every company should record their minutes and get it signed within 30 days. Similar provision, where the minutes have been kept in accordance with subsection 1, then until the contrary is proved, the meeting shall be deemed to have been duly called, held, proceeding there duly taken place, and resolution passed by postal ballot to have been all or not important. All appointments of directors, key manager person, auditors or company secretary in practice shall be deemed to be valid. That means a minutes which is recorded that these people have got appointed, once it is recorded, it is valid unless contrary is proved. And hardly I can find any single places where company secretary in practice is getting appointed as a company secretary in practice. Out of all 456 sections, hardly in any section there is a provision where the company secretary in practice getting appointed as a company secretary in practice, how a cost auditor is getting appointed, how a statutory auditor is getting appointed. But probably I don't know what is the intention. Probably while professionals' name, practicing professionals' names are appearing, they would have probably added our practicing company secretary name also. Fine. Now there is an important difference which I want to highlight to you. And these are the basic difference which I spoke just before. Applicability, and if you can understand like this, it will be so easy for us to appreciate what is the difference between all the three audit. Statutory audit, of course, everyone knows, it's applicable to all the companies. Internal audit, of course, now rule, now it's taken back, but informally I can say it is internal audit, right now it's applicable to the companies having above 10 crores paid up capital and company who has taken more than 25 crores loan deposit. Internal audit is going to be mandatory. And of course I don't know again the new rule whether they will change something, but what I read I am sharing with you. And as of now that rule it was appearing, any company having more than 10 crores paid up capital should have internal audit. Any company who have taken loan more than 25 crores or accepted deposit. No, it says deposit, even deposit also it says. That means it's unsecured also. So anything more than 25 crores, then the company should undergo internal audit. Here the interesting thing we'll see in next who can conduct. And same way secretarial audit, of course, as I told you, every listed company, a company belonging to other classes is yet to be notified. And cost audit, of course, as it is, they covered everything under the world. Services is covered, manufacturing is covered, production is covered, nothing else is there. Almost everything is covered now, cost audit. And interestingly, who can audit? Statutory audit, of course, there is no debate. And internal audit, there is going to be a debate. The Act says internal audit can be conducted by a chartered accountant, except statutory auditor, or cost accountant, unfortunately, or such other professional. I don't know who else has recognized as a professional for the purpose of Companies Act. I really wonder there is no provision in place, definition in place to deem it what is professional. Fine, probably rule may come and throw some light, see that probably by the time we can presume, we can also eligible to conduct internal audit unless contrary comes. And second audit, company secretary in practice, and cost audit, a cost accountant in practice. Now scope of audit also, audit of financial records, this was I was referring just before. Internal audit, it's about audit of the functions and the activities of the company. And secretarial audit, audit of secretarial and other related records of the company. That's what I was debating. We have to understand what is secretarial, what is other related records. Then secretarial should include everything. Then other related, then let's see, we have to wait and see whether they are going to specify what is those other related documents and what is the secretarial records. And cost audit, of course, audit of cost records. And standards, of course, audit standards recommended by the ICAI. And internal audit, there is, as of now, no standards is prescribed. And secretarial audit, they have not anywhere mentioned that SS should be followed, secretarial standard has to be followed. Till that, we need not to follow. And of course, cost audit, cost auditing standard prescribed by the ICAI. Frequency of audit, yearly audit, internal audit to be prescribed. They have not cleared that. And secretarial audit yearly and cost audit also yearly. And manner of conducting audit. Items to be included in the report have been specified in 143. As I told you, there's a big list is running up to 10 subsections. What and all items should be included and what powers and responsibilities that a statutory auditor has got. Internal audit, it has to be specified what are the items. And even secretarial audit, same the case. Of course, cost audit, same the case. And report to be, there is one more important thing, should be given to member. Of course, board of directors, we are attaching with the, not attaching, annexing with board report. We can presume it is targeted to the shareholders. But it's not directly targeting or addressing to the members how a statutory audit is addressing. Of course, the cost audit is to the board of directors. And penal provision, please see the penal provision. This is really an alarming one. Company and officer in default, apart from them, statutory auditor and willful contravention. Up to 25 lakhs and up to 5 lakhs. In case of fraud, see the punishment level, it is straight away up to 25 lakhs. Please let us not leave a breakdown. Again, we have to see that what is the penal, criminal consequence. This is only a penalty. Anyway, I am going to little bit talk about secretarial audit at the end with respect to fraud and prosecution and penal provision with respect to imprisonment. Now, next I am moving to the annual return. Certification, signing. And here also in annual return, so interesting things are there in the Act. Annual return required to be done. Of course, now the confusion is over. Now we need to keep it in mind. Accounts has to be prepared up to 31st and annual return has to be prepared up to AGM. No, both has to be prepared up to March. That confusion is not there now. And disclosure required to be made. They have given a big list which I will show you a little later. And signature requirement also undergone a change. We will see what are the difference in signature details also. And it has to be annexed with the director's report. Yeah. Oh. See, along with the board report, secretarial audit report is going to be attached, annual return also going to be attached. And we will see annual return who has to sign, a company secretary in practice is going to sign. Whatever document company secretary is signing is getting attached with the board report only. It is not directly given to either shareholders or board.
No, extracts of annual returns, whether they are prescribed, what is the extract of annual return?
They are not prescribed.
Full extract or?
Extract in the sense, what is separately filed, you know, that the same thing has to be kept. That's what they say, extract. And these are, in fact, I given a first warning. So I will quickly run through so that I can cover some important thing in subsequent slides. These are the disclosure that needs to be made in annual return. Register office, of course, now there is a requirement only to place register, give the detail of register office. Now we have to give principal business activities and holding company, subsidiary company and associate company details also. And share debentures, there is no change. Indebtedness also, there is no change as it is there in the existing report. And members debenture, that also there is no change. And now, in addition to the director's detail, we are going to provide promoters detail and KMP details, key managerial person details. And meeting of the members and their attendance also is going to be there in the annual report. How we are giving in a listing agreement at class 49, same way we are going to give in annual report, annual return.
Sir, one thing,
Excuse me, may I request the delegates?
Section 49 itself. What is the purpose of adding this again, especially?
No, this is for all companies. That is only applicable for listed companies. Yeah, it is for all companies, that is only for listed companies.
May I request the delegates to hold their questions because we are running already out of time. Let him finish the presentation. Thank you.
These are the disclosure that needs to be given. In fact, there is a new requirement that detail of the shares held by the foreign FFI also needs to be given. Signing requirements. Here the important this thing that we need to understand, we will try to understand. The present Companies Act provide annual returns to be signed by director or manager or secretary. If there is no secretary, then MD, that means two director, any home should be MD, managing director. If there is no MD, should be signed by two directors. This is the provision under section 115 of the present Companies Act. What is going to be in 2013, annual return to be signed by a director and secretary. Fine. The next line, if no secretary, one director and one practicing company secretary. Here, the difference is a practicing company secretary is going to sign as an employee of a company. Almost it will be presumed he is signing the company document. He is neither certifying, nor reporting, nor confirming something. He is going to sign the annual return. This is what the provision says for certification of annual return in section 192. In fact, if there is no secretary, this is applicable to all companies. If there is no secretary, one director and one practicing secretary, the language used is signing. Signing by one director, one practicing company secretary. Fine. Again, we will come to listed company. For listed companies, annual return now it's as it is signed as above, same procedurally. In addition to that, we are getting certification of PCS. Correct. Now let's see the scenario. A listed company is not having a company secretary. Then the same PCS will sign and certify, or for signature company has to go for different PCS, and for certification they have to come for different PCS. This is what going to be the confusion. Unless department comes out with a clarification, this will be a confusion. And these are the responsibilities that PCS is going to have. Of course, the format has to be prescribed. And these are the matters to be prescribed, as I already told you. And threshold capital limit turnover has to be prescribed. The rule has to come in place. And PCS, the listed companies, of course, now they are sure that second law is applicable to listed company. The other category of companies alone need to be prescribed. And let's see other certification quickly. Just like an incorporation, how we give for that we have complied all the provisions of Companies Act. With respect to incorporation, similar certification is there for company secretary. In practice, as usual, chartered accountant and the cost accountant. And management remuneration, like how we under present act we file Form 25C, similar provision is there. And one new provision is added. This is so important. In fact, if the company is not having profit or inadequacy of profit, the company want to pay remuneration, then the company secretary has to certify that the security creditor has approved the appointment as well as remuneration. This is the additional requirement the Companies Act 2013 has brought in. And internal audit, as I told you, we have enough seen internal audit. And export, of course, there is no clarity on export. It includes an engineer, valuer, chartered accountant, company secretary, and for what purpose the export can be utilized, will be utilized. There is no clarity. Of course, in 2-3 places, the word export is coming in the Companies Act, and even in National Law Tribunal also, the word is coming that a company secretary with 15 years experience can be considered for the member, of course, can be considered as a technical member of the NCLT. Obligation for CS in employment, same, signing annual return. and financial statement, and we have to report to the board, not only under Companies Act, other laws also, other applicable laws. Of course, we have got a big list. And to ensure the comply, secretarial standards also, is the additional responsibility is given to the company secretary in practice. I will take 5 minutes just for this fraud provision. This is going to be a really alarming, even we can say threat to the professionals also. Section 448, 447, 449. In fact, our present act, if you can see section 627 and 628, which talks about imprisonment in case of false statement, imprisonment in case of filing a false affidavit, where it says imprisonment of up to 3 years one place and 7 years one place. In only one place, 7 years imprisonment is there under the present provisions of Companies Act, in only one place. Now, how it is going to be? By introducing, in fact, Companies Bill 2009, there was no provision 447, 448, 449. In fact, now, to our surprise, the ministry completely brought a complete fraud definition into the, we'll see what are the fraud definition also. Now, a equivalent provision. As of now, we are having 628 and 627 under present Companies Act. A equivalent provision is brought into the Companies Act 2013 also. But here, there is an addition in imprisonment period. It is up to 10 years. And what is the implication of up to 10 years? Of course, if you can see the Limitation Act, 498 Criminal Procedure Act, the limitation, if the imprisonment exceeds 3 years, then there is no limitation period applicable. Then some offence committed by professionals or officials of the company today can even be tried 20 years later, once the Companies Act 2013 gets notified. This is going to be a real threat to the, not only to the professionals and directors and officers. It is going to trigger completely 468, that no longer limitation is going to rescue us as long as the fraud is proved. I just want to show the fraud. In generally, fraud definition in Indian statutes, criminal and civil violations. And contracted, in whole laws of country, only 2 act fraud is defined. One is Law of Contracts and other is Companies Act. The Law of Contracts is very general. Please see the Companies Act, what is a fraud is defined. In fact, everything can be brought within the definition of fraud, and see that we are taken for the task and troubled. Fine. Any doubt you can ask me.
Thank you, Mr. Dhanpal, for the presentation. I would like to mention that Mr. Dhanpal has taken the pains to travel throughout the night to come and give us this presentation. Unfortunately, we had to request him to squeeze his presentation. Probably I can allow about 2-3 minutes for questions and wind up this session, because already the next speaker is ready for the session. A quick fire questions, probably 2 or 3.
What is applicable to the practicing company secretary is equally applicable to the company secretary in employment also, because the section 447, 448, it says any certificate, any report, any paper, it starts with any person. As long as we are signing any paper and filing with the department, whether we are in employment, whether we are in practice, irrespective of anything, we are going to trap within section 447, 448.
Yeah, friends, I think my chairman wants me to close the session. I would like to request Mr. Ishwarmurthy to propose a vote of thanks formally.
So first I would like to thank SARC and Salem chapter for giving me the opportunity to propose formal vote of thanks on behalf of the Coimbatore chapter. So Mr. Dhanapal has presented the secretarial audit annual report and other annual written and other certification in a lively manner, and is also, I thank him for his quick presentation within the short span of time. I thank him on behalf of the SIRC and Salem chapter for his long travel with overnight travel for this. For love and affection, I request Mr. C. Tirumurthy, past chairman, Coimbatore chapter, and company secretary in practice, to give a memento to today's technical session speaker, Mr. Dhanapal. So I thank all the delegates for their patient listening. So we have to start for other technical session. Thank you very much once again.
The session is going to start immediately, so please don't get out of your seats. Thank you.